I've sat here and interviewed a lot of designers where they talk about like dressing their dolls and making clothes for their dolls, you know, all that kind of thing. It sounds like you were quite different when you were a child. Were you remotely interested in fashion or style or anything like that?
Just, yeah, when I was a kid, all you wanted to do is play with your friends. And then when we got a bit older, I didn't know anything about fashion really until, I don't know, 13, 14. But I didn't, like, when you think about what I used to wear, it wasn't, it wasn't like, oh, I really want to look like this. It was just, kind of just wanted to look like my brother, I suppose. Because I had an older brother, so I'd always want to wear what he was wearing. So then, yeah, it was, and even then it wasn't like, there was like Versace or there was like Moschino, that was like fashion. Yves Saint Laurent, YSL shirts was like fashion. Maybe like you knew about Stone Island, and it was like 501 jeans, a Ben Sherman shirt. Like that was fashion for me. I didn't know anything about like Dior or like, yeah, Galliano or like Balenciaga, and I didn't have a clue.
But was the notion of style something that you thought about, or the notion of...
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
I suppose it was from like your elders. And there was uniforms then as well, like a smart look was, when you're like 14 or 15, because you got no money, was like a fresh pair of Reebok Classics, 501 jeans, and my brother's like YSL shirt, or a Ben, like literally the one Ben Sherman shirt that you like might have got for a wedding. Do
you feel like you grew up in quite a closed world in a way, where it was like your community around you was what was inspiring you? You weren't really looking at external things, or?
Yeah, definitely. We didn't know, like we weren't subject, like we didn't know, but I didn't know about different things. Like I didn't know about alternative music. Everyone around you wore tracksuits, everyone around you like kind of looked the same. Like everyone listened to the same music. Well, at least like, yeah, they did. Like, it wasn't alternative at all. Because it was in London as well, so like, you grew up in an area, that's another thing, like you grew up in an area where we went to primary school with the same people, we went to junior school with the same people, and then you went to secondary school with the same people. Like you grew up with people for a very long time, so I think it probably would have been even harder to break out from that.
That's really interesting to me, because you can correct me if I've interpreted it wrong, but one of the things that I always read from your work, not specifically the collections, I think often the collections, but also how your label works and how you sort of conduct yourself. It feels like the sense of being in a group or a gang is very important to you, and I feel like that comes across in a lot of your collections. There's a real sense of kind of community. Do you think that comes from that upbringing?
Maybe, like, but it's a certain type of look, isn't it? So wouldn't you say there's gangs all over? There's like a Celine gang. There's like a whole bunch of women that look like Celine girls. But then, like, people never refer to them as like gangs or tribes. Like, I hate the word like Nasir tribe. Like, as a consumer, if I thought that I was dressing as part of a tribe, I would make a conscious effort to look different to being in a tribe. And no one wants to be put in a group of people. I don't want to. Like you want to be individual. Like I find that really weird when people go, oh, there's a tribe and a gang. I don't know.
People do it so much for your work.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I think maybe it's really interesting to me that you say that, because I'd wondered if it was something that you kind of cultivated, you know, by casting certain like friends in your shows and that kind of thing. I think.
Yeah, mate. But you could say it's a gang. You could say there's like gangs of people. Like you could say, oh, there's this like Nasir tribe, which is what a following, like a fan base, like people who like your work. I suppose if there's like a group of people who are all into similar things, who are into similar music, into similar style of clothing, like I wouldn't want to say I'm trying to do something. I wouldn't say it's different. I'm trying to do the opposite. Then I wouldn't say I'm trying to do the opposite to that, but I don't know, it's a hard one. Yeah, I don't know what to. I don't know what to say about all of that, because I don't think about it like that, to be honest.
What are you trying to say?
I don't think I'm trying to say anything. I honestly don't. I'm just making clothes that I like, that I personally like, that I think if I like, then a lot of other people like. Like, and I say like quite often, like for ages there wasn't like brands, there weren't labels doing clothes to say like what we are doing at the moment. So there was like this gap. Like if you wanted to go and buy stuff, like you couldn't buy certain clothes because it wasn't available in the market, and there wasn't a brand say doing anything with music or like involving music as much as we do, or maybe like connecting all those references or connecting all those things that we all like into one label. There wasn't really anything like that. Whereas now there's like lots of people doing which is known as streetwear, sportswear, which I think is stupid as well. So there's more attention on it, so more people are talking about it, so the subject has opened up, so there's more, well, there's just more like, I don't know what the right word is, there's more context to talk about, so.
Sure. It's really interesting that you say, the sportswear, streetwear thing, that you think it's stupid, and I think, I've talked to a few people about this, and I think there's a real lack of terminology for describing fashion like what you,
it's
like
just
the stuff
fashion.
you make.
It's just fashion, isn't it? I think it's just fashion. I think it's kind of rude to call it streetwear or sportswear. You don't play sport in it, do you? Like sportswear's Nike and Adidas or whatever, Reebok. That's sportswear. Streetwear, what are you saying people wear on the street? What? But people wear clothes on the street. What? I don't understand why they don't just call it fashion. Like, do you know what I mean? Why don't they just call it fashion? I just think it's belittling, to be honest. I find it quite rude to say it's from it's from the street. I don't know, it's like, yeah, why don't you just call it fashion? Why don't you just call it high-end fashion or whatever you want to call it? Like, it doesn't make sense. I think maybe it's quite intimidating what a lot of people are doing at the moment. So in a way it's like, I don't know, in a way it's, I feel like it's kind of saying this isn't fashion, guys, like the world, this isn't, like the media is saying this isn't fashion, this is streetwear. It's don't get confused, don't put it in the same bracket as like fashion, but it's sold in all this, like it's sold in big boutiques where big brands are sold. So I don't see why you would differentiate it. I don't know. Again, I find that really confusing.
It's interesting, you just said you think it's quite intimidating what a lot of people are doing. What do you mean by that?
I think it's intimidating because, for example, like I think a lot of media a lot of journalists don't even know what to write about it. They have no idea what we're referencing. They have not a clue. Some do, but like a majority, I think, don't have a clue. Like what you get straight away is sportswear, 90s. That's it. That's all. That's what I find like I ever get. It's like is that as far as you can see? And especially because we don't give like press releases, for example, like they have even less of a clue what to write about. Because if you think about like what most, well, it's bad to generalise, but what most journalists, when I read, are writing about like history of fashion and like the history, like, or it's like, I don't even know what they're talking about. They're conceptualising nothing almost. I'm like, what is that? Like honestly, you read stuff and it just makes no sense at all. But then yet they're like coming up with these massive like essays about the collection. It's like, really? Like, I don't know, it doesn't work. It doesn't click for me. Like. So then when you're doing something where they have no idea about what you're actually talking about, they can't actually write anything. I think that's quite intimidating because they don't know what to talk about. They don't know what you've actually done. Like, they can't pick up on those little details. They can't pick up on that fabric selection or the music. They ain't got a clue. Like, so I think that's quite intimidating, and I think it's kind of intimidating as well because actually, like, what we're doing is in a big way taking over is not the right saying, but it's having a massive impact on the industry, on sales, on people's direction, like on what you see big brands now doing this like streetwear. And it's, that wasn't happening before. All of a sudden, things are shifting. And I think a lot of people don't really know what they're doing, like don't know what's happening. That's why you see a lot of people all of a sudden start doing loads of like branded tapes or like logos everywhere because they think that's sports. But it's like, personally, it's not about just a sports thing. I think people often like miss a lot of things that I'm talking about or trying to pick up on. I think a lot of people miss that. I look at actually quite a lot of old like art. I look at a lot of painting. I look at a lot of historical costume, like lots of historical costume, and a lot of like national dress.
Let's talk. You kept saying before, you were talking about what you're making being slightly intimidating in the new terminology, and you said you kept using the phrase we, and I'm interested, like, who do you think are your peers? Who else do you think is doing stuff that is interesting and is intimidating people and is perhaps changing fashion, high fashion?
Oh, there's loads of people like Hood by Hair is amazing. Like what they're doing. There's like people like Cotweiler. What they're doing is really good. Well, there's loads of people that are doing like good things, but there's like Astrid, what she's doing. There's anyone who has like a similar aesthetic to like us 4 brands that I've just said. I'm not using them as like the only ones, but anyone who has a similar. That's who I mean as we. It's a new style, It's like it is a new wardrobe.
But do you actually think it's new, or do you think it's just real? Because I wonder sometimes if
it's new in terms of fashion, I think, because it was always seen as like. It was there's that whole thing of like chav culture, which I absolutely hate. But it was branded as that, and again, it was like put down. It was put down as in like anyone who wears like, that kind of like clothing, who are into those things. It's like it was branded as chav, and it was like put down. It is real, but it was never seen as high fashion. It was always working class.
I wanted to ask you if you think that the reason people are kind of relatively confused about how to refer to streetwear or sportswear or whatever is because I wonder if some people in fashion feel that there's like an inherent paradox with like a sweatshirt or tracksuit bottoms being seen as high fashion because they are so, for want of a better word, in some ways there's an ease to them that there's not perhaps to like a perfectly constructed cocktail dress. Do you kind of see that paradox? Do you see why people find that confusing to think of a sweatshirt as like high fashion?
But our sweatshirts are like 10 times more complicated than a lot of people's like complicated stuff. Like my trousers are more complicated than like a nice fitted pair of trousers. Like, so what is that? Is that basic then? Because it's got a few seams in it. Like it's like a basic pair of trousers with like whatever 4 seams, whatever how many fucking seams it's got. Is that seen as basic? Should I be laughing? Like, should I be saying that's not fashion because it's so basic? I don't feel like it's just rude. Honestly, like I just feel like people just want to put it down. Like I've had some reviews and it's like it's a joke. It's like kind of like a joke when I read them. Where I don't even want to actually like go into that, but
no, tell me, what do you think that people just, because I often feel it with your work. I've noticed just in some of the reportage around it, people don't pick up on the amazing fabrics that you use or the techniques that you're doing, and they'll just write about the silhouette as if because it's like a tracksuit shape, that's enough. That's all they have to reference.
Because that's all they can. That's all they want to see. Do you know what I mean? Like that is literally all they want to see. They don't know what they're looking at. They don't even know what they're looking at, and I think there's like an ignorance as well, because there is this thing like they do. Like talking about that being intimidation, like people don't know what to do and don't know what to write about it, and then so they, in a way, like maybe want to put it down or don't want to give it the justice that I think that maybe it's deserved.
What's the answer to that? Do you think it needs like a new generation of journalists who are going to come up? Do you think?
Yeah, you definitely need new journalists, because honestly, I read stuff and I'm like, that's just a press release. Or you're just writing that because that's like an advertiser in your magazine or in your newspaper or on your website or something. Because it is mad, like it is crazy. Like loads of brands do exactly the same thing. Loads of labels, designers do exactly the same thing every season. Change the colour, change the fabric, but no one says anything about that. Just like, oh, these exquisite fabrics, and the cut of that really basic leg trouser is so gorgeous. Like, no, it's not. It's just a fucking pair of trousers in a nice fabric. Like, I just don't get it. There does need to be new writers. I think the whole industry needs a whole shift. There needs to be new fashion editors. There needs to be new lots of things, I think. There's a lot of staleness in the industry, I find. Magazines, for example, magazines, you might as well just call them Ralph Lauren. Like, might as well not have names anymore. It's just, you open up magazines, it's literally half of it is advertising. Like, I didn't pay that money for advertising. I don't want to look at that. I want to read about interesting things and see interesting shoots. But they can't even do interesting shoots anymore because you can't. Like, it's got to fit in with this, and you've got to fit these advertisers in. It's just boring. Like, you just end up not even buying. I don't buy magazines anymore. I don't even bother looking at them. Most editorials I just find really bizarre as well. Like, just like someone, like, I don't know, sprawled out on the floor with like a random chair next to them and like a tree or something. I'm like, what is when are you ever going to find yourself in that position, like in that situation? That's not going to happen. It's this like really like twee fantasy land that it's like that ain't real. That's not real, and it's not fantasy enough either. It's
but
like,
do you not find it frustrating also when high fashion kind of like fetishizes realness? I think we've seen quite a lot of that in the last few years, where this idea of like real and like the street,
ghetto. That's what I mean.
You know, like
people
the
don't
street
understand.
issue
They just don't understand at all. It's really funny.
Do you ever feel like, looking at some of your peers, like there's not enough diversity in fashion in terms of background or like education or?
Yeah, there isn't really much. But you know, it's easy. But saying that, like I didn't go to college, so you don't have to go to college to like be a designer. You don't have to go to college to be anything really. I think if you want it, you'll just go and do it. And also, like, maybe if that happens, then, you know, in desperate times, like, people do desperate things, like exciting things, like people always say it, like it will happen, exciting things will happen. So yeah, it would be nice to have a bit more diversity in the people who we're surrounded with. Yeah.
We skipped a bit because I was intrigued by what you were saying, but let's go back to when you were young, because you started working at Vidal Sassoon. Tell me about that. Like, did you have goals as a child?
Down the road.
Were you like were there places you wanted to end up, or did it all happen just kind of like you needed a job, you started working there?
No, I did work experience when I was at school, so when I was like 14, and I chose that because the place I did choose before fell through, and I was left with that.
Did that make you want to stay working in a creative environment?
Yeah, definitely. That was like, I'm not going to school, so I'm not going back to school now. Because I didn't know what I wanted to do at all, to be honest. I just knew I wasn't going back to school. I'm not gonna live my life being told what to do by other people, like, because it's not what, like, I've got things that I want to do, I've got things that I like need to make.
Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself going?
I'd be happy if I'd be happy if maybe if we sold a bit more than what we sell now. If we could have like one or two more members of staff, so we're not all doing two people's jobs, I'd be happy. That'd be happy, nice. Don't want to be like a millionaire, and I don't have like dreams of having like shops all over the world, and like I don't want to show in Paris. I don't really want to be bought out by a mega brand. I don't. Yeah, ambition is to do what I do, and freely.